Project Management fans. Today we're going to take a deeper look into the risk register. More specifically, we're going to talk about something called the risk event drivers. I've covered this in one of my other videos, but I think there's room for some further interpretation. So I'm going to go ahead and describe in more detail what we mean by risk event drivers. So let's start with a simple risk. I may run out of gas and be left stranded on the side of the road. Well, that doesn't sound good. Who wants to be stranded by the side of the road? So if that's our risk, the next question is, what are the risk event drivers? So if we go back to what we talked about for risk event drivers, we talked about things that we could watch, gauges and indicators that help tell us whether or not this risk is going to become reality or if it's just going to stay a risk. So in this particular instance, where the risk is I may run out of gas and be left stranded on the side of the road, let's talk about some of the risk event drivers. So if you think about it, if you drive a vehicle, you've probably noticed this in the past. There are a number of different risk event drivers that occur before you run out of gas. The very first one is your gas gauge. When your needle gets near the empty mark, that tends to indicate that you're going to run out of gas at some point. The closer it gets to the E, the more likely you're going to run out of gas. That's not rocket science, it's reality. So that's an example of a risk event driver. The needle in your gas tank moving from full to 3/4 full to half full to 1/4 full to 1/8 of a tank to getting very near the E mark. So I'm going to go ahead and write that on the board. Well, that's only one of the drivers that we have in this particular risk event. The next thing that happens is you get closer to 50 miles from empty, a little light comes on. So typically it's an amber light, sometimes it's a red light, and that's a little indicator that, hey, you're going to be running out of gas pretty soon, so you might want to stop and get some gas. Well, about the same time the light comes on, a little ding happens, some kind of sound occurs as well. So you get a little audio reminder in your car that you're getting close to running out of gas. Well, if that wasn't enough, the car's already showed you the gas gauge getting low. It's flashing lights at you and dinging. But if you still haven't gotten gas yet, there's a few more things that happen. The car starts a countdown for you. Typically it starts at 50. When there are 50 miles left, it will start a countdown. 49, 48, 47, 46, 45, then eventually it gets to like 20. Depending on the car, some cars after 20, they stop counting. So you don't get a count to 19, 18, 17. Other cars will count down a little further, but at some point, the car gives up. It stops counting for you. It just basically says, you know what, I already showed you the gauge, flashed my light at you, I dinged a couple of times, I'm giving you a countdown, and you're still not getting gas. So the car basically says, you know what, you're on your own. I'm not helping you out anymore. You're just going to run out. I've done everything I can. So that's another risk event driver. When the countdown starts and when the countdown ends. So the car is really trying to help you out. All these risk event drivers, the more of them that occur, the more likely it is you're going to run out of gas. The more likely that the risk is going to come to reality. Now, the car doesn't quite stop here. The very last thing that happens before you run out of gas, there's one last thing. So we've had the needle's near empty, or maybe it's below empty. The light comes on. The car is dinging. You're getting a countdown. The countdown stops. And the very last thing that happens is the car sputters and spurts its last dying breath. Now at that point, you've got about 200 feet before you actually run out of gas. So your best bet is if you can coast into a nearby gas station. So if you're lucky enough where your car starts to sputter and you're in the vicinity of a gas station, you might be able to roll right in there to get your gas. But at this point, the sputtering is the last risk event driver that the car is going to have before you run out of gas. So as you can see, there are a whole lot of things that happen that give you indications that you're getting closer and closer and closer to the risk actually occurring. These are what we call risk event drivers. So for every risk, you should take some time to think about what are the drivers or the things I can watch that help tell me that this risk is becoming closer and closer to becoming a reality. So it's not always easy to think about the drivers, and in some cases you might not be able to, but in most cases, if you put a little time into it, you'll come up with a few drivers that you can monitor, and as those risk event drivers occur, then the likelihood of your risk will go from low to medium to high to the point where the risk actually happens. So that's all I have for you today. I want to go a little bit deeper into this concept called risk event drivers. So I hope that helped further explain what a risk event driver is for you. It's a concept that isn't really easy to grasp. A lot of risk registers don't even have a risk event driver column on the risk register. But I think it's a very important column to have because it really is a very good tool to remind you of what you're watching, what's already happened, and that really lends itself to helping better identify the likelihood that that risk or the probability that it may occur. Thanks for watching today. Professor Allen signing off.